Work, Banyan Academy of Leadership in Mental Health, Tata Institute of Social Science, Bharatidasan University, Majlis Foundation, International Foundation for Crime Prevention and Victim Care. So we have moderators, Sanchita Chain and Shraddha Chain, the moderators from Baum College. They will moderate the session for today. Over to Sanchita Jain. Yeah, thank you.
Very good afternoon to everyone. Shraddha and I will be your moderators for the day. So without much ado, I would like to introduce our first keynote speaker, Ms. Flavia Agnes. Flavia Agnes is a women's rights lawyer, a pioneer of the women's movement. She has worked consistently on issues of gender and law reforms. As co-founder of Majlis, a legal and cultural resource center, her primary engagement has been to provide quality legal services to women and children. She has played an important role in bringing women's rights to the forefront within the legal system and in contextualizing issues of gender and identity. She is a prolific writer and has provided incisive analysis of many social trends and legal reforms, including domestic violence, minority law reforms, secularism, and human rights. Ms. Agnes is one of the proponents of legal pluralism who has played an important role in reforming the Christian personal laws as well as advancing the rights of Muslim women. Her more recent engagement has been with issues of democracy, secularism, and identity politics. I now request Ms. Agnes to address the audience. Over to you, Ms. Agnes. Ma'am, you are on mute.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, we can.
Okay. Thank you very much, Human Rights Foundation, for observing this 16 days for concentrating on the elimination of violence against women. And I think it's a very good gesture. And thank you for inviting me to address this gathering. I think it's a very important issue. And we have been struggling with this for over decades. Basically, ever since I have joined the movement, sometimes in 1980, this issue has been of extreme concern to Majlis as well as to several other organizations, because at one level, there are many different ways in which women are subjected to violence, women and children. And there's constantly a demand for a law reform. And we've had many law reforms, and every time there is a gruesome rape case, a gruesome case of wife murder, constantly there is a demand for a law reform. And the presumption is that if there is a stringent, the rapes are happening or violence against women is taking place, because we don't have sufficient laws or adequate laws to address it. And when we ask this question that what kind of laws, the usual answer given is our laws are not stringent. The police don't work. The courts don't work. There is no stringent punishment. And the stringent law does not act as a deterrent. But if the law act was acted as a deterrent, then there would be no rape in our society. There would be no domestic violence in our society. There would be no wife murders in our society. And there will be gender justice and gender equality. But I have always felt that this stringent law, at its best, can act after an offense has been committed, after a crime has committed. And in order for that law to be working in an effective manner, the entire legal machinery has to work in coordination. And ultimately, there will be the conviction which will act as a deterrent. But this, this presumption is not backed by anything at all. In fact, what are the measures we need to put in place for the law to act as a deterrent? We have spent very little time on this. And this is very momentary that when an incident happens, people come out, there's protests, there are articles in newspapers, news channels publicize this. But after some time, everybody forgets it till the next rape or till the gruesome violence that takes place. So here, the issue is there are lots of mechanisms we need. There are lots of procedural changes we need. It is important that the lawgivers, the criminal law enforcement machinery, is very well versed with the changes that the law has brought about, and is acting in coordination with them, and with coordination with one another, so that the process is very smooth. Unfortunately, we cannot say this. Unfortunately, when a rape happens, there is a fear in people's mind to even report. And why is this there? Because people think this machinery will not work in their favor. There are lots of procedural lapses. And there is also leakages at every point. And unless those are plugged, and a constant watch is kept on this machinery of vigilance from the time an FIR is filed till the trial, we will not be able to get so-called justice. And that work is very mundane. It's not high publicity work. It is in the background that takes place. That it's not like a one gruesome case happens there and everybody is talking about it. This is the everyday functioning of the law. And unfortunately, most organizations do not concentrate on this. We have very short span. The reporting of the violence itself acts as an adrenaline. People get hyper, people scream, people shout, people come on the roads, they do dharna. After that, there is silence. We have not understood the legal machinery. We have not understood where the gaps are. We have not understood where we need to plug this procedural lapses at all. Because that is a long-term activity. That is a very, what we say, very unglamorous activity. And we have no patience for that. We just feel if we are successful in bringing out a new law, that law will automatically serve the purpose of acting as a deterrent. So I get calls from journalists constantly. Why is this happened, ma'am? Why is that happened, ma'am? Despite the law reform, why is there still rapes going on? The law that comes into effect is after the crime is committed. We think that is a deterrent, but it is not a deterrent. So, and then the same questions and the same answers. And we're very happy with that. We have the 16 days, we have a March 8, we have other days, we have immediate response. Earlier, it used to be not reported. Now there is reporting. Now there is a little bit of media publicity. People are aware of it. It becomes a dinner table conversation point, household discussion point, and that's it. For the next rape not to happen in our area, in our locality, we have not brought in any measures. We do not know what measures. There has to be a deep social change. There has to be a turning point where gender relationships are reformulated. There is respect for women. Women are not treated as a commodity. Every criminal justice mechanism works properly, and we are constantly monitoring them, watching over it, so that and making that machinery accountable, and then we can see whether there is a result or there is no result. And this actually does not happen at all, and that is a sad point of it. Because I've been engaged with this since 4 decades now, since 1980, since the protest against Mathura rape case way back in this rape occurred in 1970s, 1972. The judgment came in 1978, and the campaign lasted in late 79, early 1980, and went on, and it's still going on. And usually it is a demand for law reform. That case was actually the rape of a minor girl in Maharashtra. A 16-year-old girl, a tribal girl, Adivasi girl, illiterate, orphan, poor, working as a maid servant. She had eloped with a boy in that house, and her brother filed a complaint and brought her back. And the police had called her for interrogation, and she was raped inside the police station by policemen on duty. It was such a blatant violation. The community people who were there waiting for her to come out, since she was detained for so long, supported her, and she came out in a very disabled condition. Her hair had all come out, her sari was all like not in place, and she said, "I've been raped." Fortunately for her, the people waiting outside believed her. They never thought like she asked for it. She must have done something. There was no really a rape. She's telling lies. Nobody said that. They said, call the policeman back who had retired. Call him back. Call the duty officer in charge. They said, you have to record the complaint now. They said, no, now it's very late. You will go back. Tomorrow morning you come. They said, nothing doing. You immediately file an FIR, send them for a medical examination. And investigation must start now. Because of otherwise they said, we will burn down this police station. Because of the public pressure, a case was filed in 1972. Before any of this law reform talk was there, feminist groups were there, women's organization, before all this. And it was a tribal area. The session court acquitted the policeman, saying that she had consented to the sexual intercourse. The reason being that there were no marks of injury on her body. That means she had not resisted. She not resisted enough. Otherwise, there would be injury on her body. So if she did not resist, if there were no marks of injury on her body, this is consent. Surprisingly, usually acquittals do not go on appeal, but in this case, the government appealed. The case went to High Court. In the High Court, a well-established principle was invoked to say a quiet acquiescence is not consent. That means consent has to be voluntary. Out of fear, out of inability to resist, if she remained passive, that does not mean she consented at all. So they convicted the policeman. The case went to Supreme Court. 1978, the Supreme Court judgment came. And in that judgment, the Supreme Court had two options, whether to uphold the Sessions Court or the High Court judgment. Supreme Court, 3 judges gave a verdict upholding the judgment of the Sessions Court, acquitted the policeman, and upheld the view that Mathura is a liar and that she has consented. And now she's made up this story of rape. This judgment came as a shock to the nation. And 4 law teachers in Delhi, Indian Law Institute, wrote a letter to the Chief Justice, and they made it an open letter and published it in the newspapers. This letter is very significant for the women's movement because it gave birth to the women's movement in India. Immediately, there was a demand for reviewing this law, this judgment, rehearing this case. And it was written in the letter that if you don't do this, the hopes of millions of Mathuras in the country will be lost forever. Because the defense could always invoke this judgment to say there was no rape. There is no injury, so there is no rape. And in most cases of rape, there is no injury. Only very few gruesome cases like the Nirbhaya case happens. But in most cases, the accused is a known person, or out of fear, the woman is not able to resist, etc. So now, when this happened, first the demand was for law reform. So the judges said, we don't make laws, we only interpret the laws. Your demand has to be to the legislature so that a more amiable law can be passed, a change in rape laws can come about, and which will make it easier for conviction, which is not true at all. Actually, even under that law, the accused could have been convicted. But to save themselves, the Supreme Court gave this verdict. The case went before the legislature. Legislature responded immediately. The law reform came in 1983. And what it brought about is a stringent punishment. They laid down the principle of minimum punishment of 7 years for all rapes. But if it is an aggravated situation like a gang rape or a rape of a minor, then 10 years minimum. So this was 1983. Matters went on, and if you really noticed or watched rape trials, nothing had changed at all. None of the safeguards that were written into the statute were not observed, and again, Supreme Court chastised the High Court and the trial courts for not following the safeguards. And to maintain dignity of the victim, that her name should not be published, rape trial should be held in camera without public view. The victim should not be humiliated. Her dignity should not be violated. All these things were there, but nobody followed it. There was one important aspect of law which the reform did not take into account, is that under the criminal law, the girl's past sexual history could be used by the defense to protect the accused person. Saying that suppose if she was a woman of loose moral character, if she has had boyfriends, what they call, if she's a loose character, then the rape, it would be presumed that there is no rape. This woman must have invited. But finally, in 2002, this provision was dropped. It was deleted. Because this provision gave the defense lawyers to do everything possible to humiliate the victim, to paint her in very bad light, to blame her that it is because of her, this guy has taken advantage of her, because she invited it, or various kind of these myths were played out in the courtroom. And finally, after a lot of agitation, sometime in 2002, this provision of Evidence Act under 154 was deleted. So from then onwards, we thought it would be easier. So you can see the changes at the Supreme Court level, but the judges, we have become much more sensitive. But you do not see it at the trial court level. You do not see it in the High Court level. Finally, in 2012, there was the Nirbhaya case. the whole nation woke up, saying something is seriously wrong with the cases, and we need a more stringent law. The law is not working, etc. It was a gruesome rape and murder case. All of us know about it. It was in the press. Agitations were taking place everywhere. Not just women's rights activists, but everybody was protesting. Students were protesting. Youth groups were protesting. And finally, in 2013, we got a law reform. And this time, a Justice Verma committee had been formed. Justice Verma committee gave certain recommendations. Soon after that, these recommendations were taken on record, some of them, and 2013 law reform happened. Meanwhile, in December, or rather in November, on November 14th, child rape was brought under a separate law called the POCSO Act, Protection of Children from Sexual Assault Act, which had changed the definition away from penetrative sex to include also non-penetrative sex. Now, this definition, which came under the POCSO Act in November 14, 2012, thereby happened in December, on December 16. So the law reform, in fact, borrowed that definition of rape into the IPC, section 375, 376, and increased the punishment even more. Death penalty was 14 years. Now, death penalty has become till the death of the person, actual death of the person. So if a 19 or 20-year-old boy is given a death penalty, till his whole life he will remain in prison. There was also demand for a death penalty, but death penalty was not granted. So this is the situation under which we have been living. And if you see the crime records, the case is going all the time. The graph is on the incline forever. Every year there are more cases reported. So many people ask me, actually the cases have increased or the reporting has increased. It's very difficult to say whether the reporting has increased or the rape has, whether the instances of rape has increased. But what I am trying to tell you here is that when all of us are feeling about the situation in the country, we are concerned about the situation in the country, we need to follow up what happens in a court of law in the rape case. Unless we're able to do that, unless we're able to meet the family, see the situation under which they are living from the FIR time, understand the situation in which this rape had happened, and then give her the support, we will not be able to get conviction. And this is our firm belief in Majlis. And that's what we are doing. We provide socio-legal support to victims of domestic violence and victims of sexual assault and rape. So when you say socio-legal support, it's not a question of getting conviction and the highest punishment, but it is a question of how this victim walked this legal journey, and walking this legal journey itself becomes an empowering activity. And she's able to understand the legal system. She's able to depose in the court very accurately and it about a conviction. The whole family is with her. The whole family is supporting her. Only if we are able to create socially a situation like this, when she goes to court, she will not be able to stand the cross-examination. And this, all her document, all the medical examination papers, everything follows as per the norm of the criminal law. There are lapses on the part of the police, lapses on the part of the medical professional, the lapses on the part of the public prosecutor. There will not be conviction. And we understood this quite early, sometime in 2011, in the first rape case that of a child who was raped in school, quite close to our office, that we realized this. Well, then we have a not in criminal code, our work was mainly situated in the family court for women who are victims of domestic violence, for issues of child custody, maintenance, etc. But here, from this point in 2011, before all these changes happened, we also took on the criminal courts and the criminal activity. And I must tell you that it's been extremely challenging work, but also brings us a lot of reward, because when actually, despite all the odds, we're able to secure a conviction. Not just that, we're able to rehabilitate the victim in every sense of the word. That we will not be able, that we are able to get a sense of satisfaction that at least because of our intervention, a case which would have ended in acquittal has now ended in conviction. That process is very tedious. The process is very difficult, and it takes lots of steps. It takes years, even for one case to come to its end. And even then, you may not get conviction. But whether there's a conviction or acquittal, what we think most, because conviction or acquittal depends on many other things beyond our control. But we feel that the entire journey, the victim should not feel alone. She should not feel that everybody has let her down. She should feel that I have a support person who can stand with me, who believes in what I say. And I think that is utmost important. This is as far as the rape case is concerned. And unless these kind of programs take place all over the country, in big towns and cities, towns, rural areas, etc. And we have like either NGOs, civil society groups, or the state gives this kind of protection. We will not be able to change attitudes about women in court, in media, among the general public. And there's always the presumption is that this woman has told dies. Because of it, there is no conviction. She has made up this story. Whatever happened in the Mathura case, still we believe all the myths which are there against women. We have seen it in the recent Hathras case. I mean, there was this gang rape, there was beating. She was taken to the hospital, not treated well, medical examination not done in time. Then she dies. When she dies, there is a very unceremonious burning. And the issue comes here not just gender, but also caste. Caste-related violence. The ganging up together of the state and upper caste accused coming together. And at the end of it, this girl dies. She does not survive. Now we've started using the term like for a rape victim that she is a survivor. According to us, she doesn't become a survivor overnight. Similarly, a victim of domestic violence who has struggled and who has fought her case for like 20 years, 30 years, she has stayed in a violent marriage, and now she approaches the court. Now she approaches the family court or a criminal court for a protection order or for maintenance, child custody, for a divorce, etc. Whatever that she's seeking. Unless she gets support to walk the legal journey, she cannot be a survivor. So the motto of our organization is to turn victims into survivors. So by changing the nomenclature, we are not able to change a victim from the victimhood. Changing of the victimhood into a survivor is a very long journey, is a difficult journey. And unless we help her to walk this journey to become a survivor, and through her struggle and through her achievement of fighting the legal battle, we are able to change the system itself. We are able to transform the system itself. Where a judge's views change, where the police views change, only because this woman has stood her ground very strongly and brought about a conviction, was able to convince a judge what exactly happened to her. And gradually, through each case, the judge gets transformed, the police gets transformed, the public prosecutor gets transformed. And our aim is to bring in this social legal transformation of the place of the arena of justice. But the
Sorry to
justice does
interrupt,
not
ma'am.
happen in the legislature. I'm ending.
Oh, okay.
It does not happen at the legislature. The justice has to happen in the courtroom. So even bringing a law through the legislature is important, but very small step. So following this case at every step, from the FIR to the conviction to the trial, and getting a conviction, according to me, is the crux of the matter. And through this talk, I wish to engage with Human Rights Foundation and human rights activists everywhere, that they are able to help and provide this help to every victim to transform themselves into survivors. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I would now request Shraddha to introduce the next keynote speaker for the day.
Good afternoon, all. I am Shraddha, and I'll now be introducing our next speaker for the day. Lakshmi Sri is the Senior Manager for Crisis Intervention Services, PCVC, the International Foundation for Crime Prevention and Victim Care, which is a Chennai-based organization founded in 2001 to create and extend support services for women and queer individuals affected by domestic and interpersonal violence. She has been managing the emergency support 24/7 National Domestic Violence Helpline Dhwani and providing long-term rehabilitative support through comprehensive psychosocial services. She has an experience of 5 years in the field of gender-based violence. I now invite ma'am to address the topic.
Hello, everybody. Good evening. Can you hear me well?
Yes, ma'am.
Am I audible? Yeah.
Very
Thank you,
audible.
Shraddha. Thank you, Shraddha, for the introduction. And I thank HRF for inviting me to be the keynote speaker for this session. So I'm going to speak today focusing on the COVID and the COVID impact of domestic violence. So how it is interlinked and how it has been during the last few months. I mean, we all know that there has been a substantial increase in the domestic violence cases. So as a service provider organization working with survivors of domestic violence, I will give you a perspective of how it was very challenging for, like, from a service provider point of view. So as we all know that from March, I mean, the COVID lockdown, before the COVID lockdown, we were all over the globe, they were talking about how the COVID has been spreading as like very fast, and that in India as well, you know, they had they had on from March 25th onwards, there was lockdown that was been implemented, and how so although this was started to like combat the virus, to not spread the virus, but how this has been negatively impacted. So the negative consequences of the lockdown was the, you know, increase in the domestic violence cases. So to start off with, like, right from the time of the, like, there has been always domestic violence and cases all over, I mean, every time. So like from like, I mean, yeah, so like before the lockdown also, we were seeing a lot of domestic violence being reported, but after the lockdown, we've seen a lot of domestic violence cases being reported. So the NCW, the National Commission for Women, had reported, has sent out reports saying that there has been a substantial increase in the domestic violence cases being reported, and that it has been 100%. Okay, so this mainly was that, like, immediately after the lockdown, so the rule of like work from home culture, like, you know, we'll have to stay back at home, and it this is mainly to like not spread the virus, but the impact is that there were a lot of women being in the in confined spaces, being living with the perpetrator, and this was causing a lot of like increase in domestic violence cases. So the NCW had also announced a WhatsApp number. This was mainly because there were a lot of women who are not able to talk on the phone. So this is the reason why they had also like announced a WhatsApp number for women to easily access and be you know, register complaints related to domestic violence. So if you see, like, this is a government data that have been talking about. So now if you talk about the like, I'm talking about the Dhwani hotline. So what we saw was that, like, from the time of the lockdown, so from March 25th, there was a steep fall of the number of cases that we were receiving. Okay, so this was very unusual because during a natural disaster and all that, there are the possibilities that there'll be an increase in the domestic violence cases. So, but beginning of the lockdown, we saw a steep fall of in domestic violence cases, and eventually, gradually, it rose up like substantially, drastically. It rose up, and it was like there are a lot of people who are calling us on like on phone, and most of them were like WhatsApping us and texting us as they were staying with their perpetrators. So if you see, there were a lot of like women who are reaching out to us during late in the night, because that was the time they were able to talk to us. So now the things that we have to also understand is that it is not easy for a woman to reach out, especially during a time where we are all locked up in a house and we are not supposed to step out. So given this situation, there are like a lot of people around in the house, the perpetrators right there, and then there's their family being there. So it is a very hard time for the women to reach out for help. And also, if you see, before there were some clients who had spoke to us, and they told us that, you know, before my husband used to go to work, and it didn't matter much because, you know, half the time he's away for work. But then right now abuse have increased like drastically, and that it has been affecting her mental health as well. So women are trying to reach out for support and like help, but during this lockdown time, it has been a very challenging part, because we were not able to like connect to the service providers like in other districts and other states of the country. So this has been a very big challenge. So women also, the kind of calls and cases that we received were like, most of them were they had reported there was like an increase in the physical, verbal, sexual and financial violence. Being at home always, and like there's a lot of burden on the woman as well, because now the women have to take on all the load of the household, because before she might have had some help, but now given the situation, she's forced to take up all the household chores by herself, and which is also had led to a lot of issues between the husband. And if you see, there are like women who are working also had a lot of like trouble, because the husband used to always constantly like say, you have to be doing this, you'll have to take care of the children. So it was a hard time for those who have been also working, like the women who are working. And if you see, the sexual abuse had increased, that is like marital rape. So many people reported saying that he was like forcing, and he didn't really understand my emotions and feelings, and I had no place to like or reach out to anybody, because he's taken away my phone. I didn't have any support system nearby to even reach out to. So it was a very hard time for women to reach out for support as well, because the lockdown has distanced their support systems, which was earlier there. And so we had we were available 24/7, and we did have some case like we were and our shelters were open. So in Chennai, we did rescue a lot of clients who were in an abusive relationship. Either we had like brought them to our shelter with the help of the police and the one-stop center, or if they were willing to move to their family or natal family, or their to a safer space, we coordinated that as well. So the thing is that during this kind of a pandemic, women are more vulnerable, because they have no space. They have no space to like vent out their emotions, or they cannot step out, because most of the women then, when they called us, they also mentioned that we didn't know that you were working, we didn't know that there was support outside. So a lot of them, especially during the pandemic and the lockdown, the perpetrators also started talking to them and saying that, oh, you know what, nobody can come for your reach right now. So because everybody is in lockdown, and the police are also occupied with pandemic work, so you will not have any support right now. So these are the things that the perpetrator also was telling. Now, so they also mentioned that you were talking to some helpline, right? Why don't you call them? They cannot do anything. So there were constant threats that the woman was facing during this time. And we received around 300 new calls during the first phase of the lockdown, and this is all new clients who reached out to us. most of them said that, I know that nothing can be done at this point, but I just want to vent out my my feelings right now, because this is just getting very, very taxing, and it is like going to a point where I might not be able to make it out. So there was a lot of suicidal tendencies and thoughts that were going in clients' mind. And so all this, summing up all this, that even after the lockdown, so when they started, there was a relaxation in the lockdown. So that time we saw like a lot of women coming out and reaching out to us for support. And it was like, again, the calls like rose up to a great extent, where women were saying that the financial difficulties were making the husband being more abusive towards her and the like children. And also and one more reason, the one more issue that they flagged up was that the alcohol consumption, like, so because alcohol was banned, like, and they closed down all the Tasmac. So the husband was getting very aggressive and showing all the anger towards the wife. And all this has been witnessed by the children. So during the lockdown, a lot of women had mentioned that we were all staying in a confined space, and children have been witnessing all the violence that has been happening during this time. So so even women, like even children, are impacted during because of the domestic violence. So, and it is important that we are there for women who are reaching out to us, and not because it takes a lot of courage for a woman to like reach out to us for support. So yeah, so and also during the pandemic lockdown, because we were not it was a very big challenge for us to coordinate services with the other stakeholders, because one is that we were not aware that if they were working, or like, because everybody is in closed doors, so they have to be staying closed doors, so we didn't know if other organizations are working. So it was a very big challenge for us to connect services, but we did try and manage at least to send the police over to the client victim's house. And if you see, like, even in burn cases, so burn violence is very common in the south. And so in Tamil Nadu, we work in the KMC burns ward, where there are a lot of cases that come to the KMC burns ward. So if you see the burn violence also we don't know what happened, like, if there are like women who are self-inflicting themselves, but they are not able to reach because of the lockdown. So there are many we don't know. So only some have been reported, like some women were able to be we were able to report the violence, but there are a lot of people who are not being able to report because they might not have access to phone, or they usually go to the police station for support, but they are unable to do so. So if you see during the pandemic, so all the burns ward units were like, for temporarily, because they needed more space, were like used for COVID related help. So we don't know how many of them were able to get to access those services. So if you see that during the pandemic, there's a lot of things that we have understood, and also like it is and I think domestic violence services also need to be included as essential service, because when there is a pandemic, or when there is a natural disaster, or there's any kind of event that's happening, there is going to be an increase in the cases of domestic violence, as it is interlinked, because there can be like unemployment, there can be a lot of stress, and that stress because of uncertainty, and this can lead to a lot of violence. And we being in a patriarchal society, women are like they are controlled, their actions are controlled. So it is very, very hard for a woman to reach out for support. So to conclude that, I think that domestic violence services has to be added as an essential service, and we all have to work together to combat the violence.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I now request Sanchita to brief the discussion led by Flavia, ma'am.
So
Yeah, I think let's have questions, what people are asking, what students are asking, what other participants are asking. Let's see some of the questions.
sure, ma'am.
We now open the floor for questions. You may unmute, the participants may unmute themselves and ask questions. You can also use the chat box to write your questions.
Actually, before the discussion starts, I have a point here about Lakshmi's presentation, is that in crisis situations, whether it is a famine, whether it is an earthquake, whether it is a fire, whatever, and we all have crisis management systems in place, or we are supposed to have. And there is a general understanding that there is a crisis, then there might be a medical emergency, financial emergency, houses may have collapsed, they need financial support, they need shelter, a safe place, etc. But we have never understood that needs of women are very different from the needs of men. How a crisis affects men is very different from a same crisis affects women. And that's what we call gender sensitivity. Now, what comes through in this pandemic is that lockdown was announced unceremoniously and everybody was supposed to stay inside. Whatever the government is supposed to do from the health services point of view, they were trying to do. But what they did not realize that this pandemic is going to affect women in a very different way. These women have very specific needs. Women need very specific kind of protection. And that issue, the gender sensitivity, was totally lacking. And in fact, I mean, this is true in every country. Every country showed an increase in domestic violence. NCW said that we have more, I mean, it's 100% more calls coming in of women in crisis. And that is because women were barred from entering the police station. They did not have the vehicle, transportation, etc. to reach the police station. But those women who walked and reached the police station, even in Mumbai, the police had barricaded themselves, barricaded the police stations, and they were not allowing women to come near a police station. Courts had closed down completely. So the question of a payment of maintenance, pending maintenance orders, pending interim orders were not coming. Women were just like stranded over there. And then the only thing they could do to deal with the violence is to call the helpline. That also, I mean, they did not have easy access to the phone also. And the husbands would monitor them all the time. So they were like caged animals. And this is a lesson to the government, a lesson to all of us, a lesson to those who intervene and provide support, is to understand at the time of pandemic how they have to be prepared in advance to deal with the situation. You provided hospital beds, you provided some medication, something else, etc., etc. You enforced lockdown. Police control was there. Police station, police were maintaining patrol in every situation. But you were not bothered in that house. There was a woman victim who was not safe. Almost every area would have such victims. At least she could come out and complain to the police who was standing there nearby. But even that was not thought of. And according to me, it did not have to be this way. If all service providers, if all state mechanisms were sensitive to the needs of women, is what's going to happen now. If courts are locked down, so what should we do? If police stations are not recording the crime, what should we do? How will women be safe? The fact that women need protection in their own homes when the husbands are at home all the time, and they're frustrated husbands, they can't get their drink, they are not working, they've lost a job, there's money problem. There is difficulty in getting vegetables. There is difficulty in getting daily food. Now, in a situation like this, what that woman goes through and how vulnerable she becomes was just not envisaged by any government department until the NCW raised its alarm. That and what can NCW do over a phone call? What kind of support can NCW give? What kind of support any NGO can give when everything is locked down? What do you do? Even to reach a shelter home, it was not possible. Police were not given orders that a woman is in crisis and she needs immediate shelter. Nothing of the sort was provided. And this is a sad situation. And this is a wake-up call to us that when a crisis is there of any sort, whether it's a water crisis, whether rains, whether floods, whether fire, whether it is famine, whatever, then we need to pay special attention to the needs of women, because it aggravates their vulnerability, it aggravates their dangerous situation. And I hope that this was a lesson for everybody, that how women who are already in a vulnerable position, how will they be able to cope with it? So that kind of preparation, not just health, not just women ministry, but overall every ministry should keep in mind that where are the shelter homes? But if COVID victim needs a quarantine situation, so does domestic violence victim needs it, and we need to address that. So I hope that's a lesson for all of us. Thank you, Lakshmi, for bringing this out in the presentation. Okay, now let's hear the questions and let's see what comments people have and what kind of remedies they're thinking about.
சில்க்லேட் கீழே வந்து ஒரு ஹார்னஸ் வரும், வயரிங் ஹார்னஸ்.
I have a question for you. So, from my observation, from what you were saying, I feel that there is a lack of diversity as a value in the Indian judicial system, in our judicial system. And there is, and our laws and the system that we have in place reflects low sensitivity towards it. And how do you propose, or what would you say about, or how is your organization working with this, and how do you intend to mitigate it?
What do you mean by diversity?
What I meant was that in some cases there is double discrimination working against some vulnerable individuals or some individuals. So in that case, our laws reflect lack of representation for them. So in respect to that, what would you like to say on that?
I agree with you completely that our legal system lacks diversity. I think what you're trying to say is that people who come into the judiciary or people who rise inside within the judiciary come from a particular class and caste. Class, caste, religion, everything. So when a victim comes from a lower class, a different religion, or an Adivasi or a Dalit woman, and in fact, these are the women most prone to rape because of their subordinate status, because of their already existing vulnerability. And when they come before the criminal investigation machine, whether it's the police, whether it's a public prosecutor, or whether it is the judge, they all come from like a similar kind of background, similar kind of sensitivity or insensitivity towards the women. And even if there are women judges or a women police officer, they lack the sensitivity and sensibility of being a woman. Their mindset, their thinking is in the process of males. So now in a situation like this, unless we have adequate training for every stakeholder, at the very point of intervention till the end, we will not be able to deal with these issues of diversity, vulnerabilities, and subordination of women. So this is very important, and the point that you made is very important. If you read judgments of, say, a rape of a Dalit woman or rape of an Adivasi woman, you will, the discrimination is so glaring that sometimes, like, oh, she is used to having sex, so this is not rape. Or, their culture is like this. The women of this community have loose moral values. Or if a woman, young girl is raped, then they say, now who will marry her? This is the judges saying this in the judgment. Even in a so-called good judgment, they say now, oh, now she is become tainted. Now her parents would need more money to pay dowry. Now these are the general opinions in the society, also reflected in the legal system. Even in delivering judgments, they have these kind of comments. And if there is these comments in one judgment, the second judgment will follow it. Because to go against the grain is difficult. To go along the grain, this one used the word patriarchy. So to follow the patriarchal norms is very easy. Everybody can follow them. But to go against the patriarchal norms, to bring in a new value system of equality and gender justice, is you are facing the wrath of the entire system. And judges and officials do not want to do this. So it's up to us. When I say each woman standing there very strongly and is able to get a conviction in her favor, changes the system itself entirely. Because here she challenges the very deep-rooted biases that exist within the system, exist within the prosecution, within the judges, within the police, within the medical profession, all of that. So it is so important to get convictions, not just because of an individual case, because the general impact in the court system, when we bring in a different kind of sensibility, which a girl is able to bring about when she forces them to have a conviction and question the entire value system. Very rarely it happens, but I'm sure with your support, each victim can turn into a survivor.
Thank you for your answer, ma'am.
Miss
You,
Rashmi,
you understood the point I was trying to make?
Yes, ma'am.
Did it come across? Yeah, okay.
Miss Rashmi Singh was trying to ask a question, I think.
Yeah. Hi, this is Rashmi, and I'm from PCVC, same organization from where Lakshmi is also. I just have I don't know whether it's a question or just adding to what Flavia was saying in her presentation, is that yes, while women resort to legal support system to seek justice for themselves, to come out of that cycle of violence. But what we have also seen, Flavia, in PCVC, because we are a direct support services organization, like providing shelter, counseling, etc. Sometimes we see that for a woman to actually travel on that journey of seeking justice legally, there is a whole Pandora of other support which is required, which is right from a roof on her head to support for her children, for emotional support, financial support. And this is always a challenge that it is like a chicken and egg situation, whether she gets into legally and seeks justice, or parallelly these things are required. And a lot of time in PCVC, Flavia, we have seen that the immediate support which a woman asks for is the crisis support, which is shelter, which is support for her children's education. And maybe like after 2-3 years, we have seen where a woman says, okay, now I feel more grounded, I feel more on my feet, and now I want to take the legal recourse. So what has been your experience, and I mean, how do you see all of this coming together?
Actually, our organization is established as a legal support organization. More recently, we have also added the social support. So what happens is, supposing you take a victim of domestic violence, before coming to us, she tries various other organizations, various other support structures. And when none of them work in a way, and everybody says you go for now a legal option, she comes to us. Our first task is to orient her towards the legal system and to explain to her that the legal system is not a magic wand which is going to transform things overnight. And the change has to comes very gradually. But you walk this legal journey and the change will definitely happen. And we are there to hold your hand along with this journey. You are not walking it alone. We'll give you all kinds of support. Now that is why we added the social support. Maybe a rape victim wants to change her school, or maybe a residence because there is a stigma involved, or she's pregnant and either she has to have an abortion or a safe home to have a delivery and come back. So lots of these things are there. She might have contracted AIDS or any other STD. So there are lots and lots of these issues. And of course, the financial issue. Each of these crimes pushes the woman who is already poor several rungs down the social system. So she's poor, she's changing house, she may be pregnant, she can't go to school. So a vulnerability becomes more long-lasting because she's not educated. All these things happen. And to steer her through this is a challenge. But she has no other option. If she's raped, and the FIR is already filed, she has no other option. So the state has provided certain measures like a compensation to a rape victim, a safe shelter home, child welfare committees. So all these support systems are there. But she is not aware of it. She doesn't know how to access it. Our duty is to steer her through that, explain her situation to every possible authority. So she's able to reap the benefit of the provisions that are written in the law for a victim support. Because she's not aware. We have to make it aware. The police are not bothered. The hospitals are not bothered. Nobody's bothered. It is a job of the government. It's not an NGO job. But we feel that if we do it and it becomes a norm, and then the government will be able to do it. And another thing that we do constantly is that we do a lot of training to the police, public prosecutors, judges, everybody. We do these trainings free of charge. They provide the space and all. We provide the material for that, and from that material we conduct the training. And when our condition is that, supposing this group of like 40, 50 police officers are there, men, women, then we presume they have understood the law and they will not violate it. This is our understanding. We spend maybe 2 days, 3 days explaining every single thing to them. But a condition is they should not violate what they have taught. They should not forget when they go out of this class. Now, when we actually follow up the cases, each case, and we see this violation happen, and there are a number of these violations that are happening from the very same people who have gone through the training. So we're able to name the officer, name the date, the case number, exactly what date, what violation had taken place, whether it is a judge, whether it is a police, whether it is a prosecutor, and write to the concerned authorities higher ups. And our understanding with that is that when you point this out, they should take action so that a message goes down the line. If the message doesn't go, it has no value. But when we are very specifically pointing this out, they cannot say that it didn't happen. Sorry. Just talk to you later. So they cannot say it did not happen. And when 2-3 officers are suspended or there is a departmental inquiry on this, the message goes very clear that they mean business. This NGO does not just come and do the training and go away. There is a constant follow-up on it, constant monitoring of the system, so that the message goes very, very clearly. And there is a sort of fear that is brought in that we have to obey. It is not a very simple matter. To give an example, that all the checking that happened, not now, but before the COVID, of baggage checking and body checking at the airports, etc. You know how stringently it is done? And nobody knew how to do it. Even women didn't know how to do. Nobody knew. They were taught. And then even if the smallest lapse is there, it is taken up so seriously, not just for the concerned person, but for the entire unit. So because of the fear, it is done very, very well, whether it's the High Court, whether anywhere else. So we said, you can do it there, then why can't you do it here? There is a training going on. There is a law that is in place. Why are you not taking this seriously? because there is no fear, because nobody takes it seriously. And when we taught them that this will be taken seriously, the entire quality of our training changed, the entire interaction changed, and there was a seriousness about the training. So if every organization can do this kind of very rigorous kind of training and monitoring, the change will come. And now if you see in the work that we do for rape cases, oh, the general conviction rate is about 25%. But when we have taken up cases, our conviction rate is 65, 70%. And that's a huge change. The 30% we are not able to get a conviction because of various other lapses. But otherwise, we can see that the law it is possible to follow the law. It is possible to provide the necessary protection to a victim in the course of walking the legal journey. And only then you will see the change.
Miss Namita wants to say something, I think.
Right. So am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Great. So I am not sure as to whom to address this question to, but so this is more of an immediate intervention as well as legal interference running question, I guess. So very recently I came to understand that one of my friends was going through domestic violence. They had to come and hunker down with their family during the COVID lockdown. And, it was, I was very glad to see that they were able to access, say, for example, all the resources that they needed in order to leave their house, and PCVC helped them, move to a secure location. But after that, we did notice that the individual did not want to press charges since, family was involved, and it was the parents who were the perpetrators. So my question here is it possible to break through the inherent conditioning that, you cannot ask somebody to indict your own family, and move beyond that particular familial protection, and ask for a little bit of self-preservation from say, for example, I'm talking in terms of an individual's psychology and the ability to get a conviction at all legally. So this is a little bit of a vague question, but I'm unable to specify it any further.
Lakshmi would like to answer this question.
So like you said, I mean, one is that it depends on what the clients wants to do. And so she did, I mean, like who you're referring to had contacted us, and we were able to shift her to a safer space. But beyond that, it is the client's decision to decide if she wants to take this further and report it and then take action, or like, because there might be a lot of strings attached to why she is not wanting to step forward and proceed like further. So it is always like we can always like explain to her what are the legal aspects of it and what are the things that she can do, but it lies with the client, and the choice lies with the client on what she wants to do next and how she wants to go about that.
So on the same vein, I understand that it is important to secure the client's self-determination, but there is also the aspect of, just letting things be, not changing the status quo, saying if it is going to be my immediate family, I will take the abuse, right? I'm talking about the conditioning there.
Yeah, I mean, see, we've brought up in a way where, like, our culture says that that whatever happens in the house stays in the house, and it's normal that like parents and when like husband and wife, the fights these are common fights, and this is nothing that they have to report outside. So that's how we've been taught and brought up, and that stigma always like it is hard to detach ourselves from that. So it is not that easy for anybody to actually report their own parents sometimes. It
right,
will
right,
take
right.
some
Yeah.
time for them to come out of that, and maybe this is what she wanted. She just wanted to move out and be in a secure space, and this is what she wanted. So she didn't want to, because we had clients who with such similar cases where they've told that, no, I don't want to hurt my parents, but then I just want to come out, leave the situation and just be out of it, and I don't want to bother, and I don't want them to disturb me in any way. So, and I don't want them to
Right.
take to the police or anything, because I don't want to shame them. Ultimately they're my family and they're my parents. So, and yeah, so but sometimes they want to like proceed and then file a case. So, but it depends on individuals that if they want to take it further and report
Right,
it.
right. Okay. Thank you.
I just want to add 2-3 lines. As a counselor or as a support person, we can see what's going wrong with this person's life. Not only we can see that, we also can see how we can rectify it, how we can make it better. And when you're a lawyer, it's even more feasible, because there's a law to protect you. There are all the ingredients. We know where he's working, how much he's earning. He's able to, we are able to get a favorable maintenance order, etc., etc. And if this woman goes along with the advice that we have given her, the situation will definitely be better. But we need to remember that it is her life, it's not my life. It is her life, and I cannot play God with her life. I cannot transform my life for her against her own wishes. So it's at some point it may be necessary to take a back step. And when she's ready, she will come back to us. If you have given her that kind of confidence and support, that she has trust in us, definitely she'll come back when she's in crisis next. But at that time, many people feel, as a counselor, you feel used. You say she comes, she goes, she comes, she goes. But that's exactly the support she needs till she becomes strong enough to take that final step. And if you're not able to provide that support, there's no point in doing this work, because you opted to come here. You have opted to do this work. And you feel this is your occasion and you want to do good. But at the same time, every case that we take up does not end in a success story. That is very important lesson to learn right at the beginning, so that you don't feel dejected, you don't feel that you're being used, and you go along the way things are. Some are good, some are very fast, some back to come back in circles. So this is the reality, and we have to accept this reality.
Yeah, I would just like to add to that. So always like the autonomy lies with the client. So I mean, it is her decision ultimately, and they can go back and forth with their decision, and that's okay. Because if we say, okay, I've told you this before and all that, what happens is that the client will be like, okay, maybe I'm disturbing them. So that when we talk to the client, we have to understand that it is not easy to leave an abusive relationship. It takes a lot of courage, and it takes a lot of time for them to leave that abusive relationship. And research and studies have told that it at least takes 7 times they try reaching out for support, and then only they leave.
Absolutely.
So and at that point we'll have to be really supportive. And so we have a lot of clients where they've come and they've told us, I'm not disturbing you, right? I mean, like, I have told you about this, but I think I want to consider going back with my husband, or not leave this time. So it is completely all right, just that we have to be there and let them know that there is support, and that we are available at any point of time if they are in any crisis situation. And that validation will help women get the confidence, and they will know that, okay, if there's something that's going to happen, that I have support, and then I can reach out to them.
And also to make them understand this is normal. It's not very
Right.
easy, even for any in our position, to break an abusive relationship, whether it's a boyfriend, whether anybody. It's not easy. And if you can convey that to her in order to build her confidence, then she will not try to hide things from you. Otherwise, they think, I don't want to hurt this counselor. She has supported me when I needed. Now, how can I tell her that I'm going back to the same relationship, etc.? There's a lot of guilt inside them also. So they will not articulate it, but you have to anticipate it And you have to say that any time you want to go back, it is your decision. Explain to her well in advance. But we'll always be there for you. And even if you go back and when you need us, please come back. So this is very important rather than writing her off and she says, no point, this woman is never going to leave and I'm not going to help her. That is a
Absolutely.
very wrong approach to the part of the company.
Thank you so much.
I'm glad you
Thank you so much. Me
So
too.
Shanti has asked a question on the chat box. The question says, why conviction rates are less or has slow pace? Does this help in reporting with confidence, or is justice being denied?
Again, can you repeat?
Yeah, sure. The question says, why conviction rates are less or has slow pace? Does this help in reporting with confidence, or is justice being denied? Shanti, would you
I think
clarify your question?
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. It was really interesting to hear your topic. I run a campaign to end child sexual abuse. So I'm part of World Vision, and I've been working for the last 3 years with regard to taking prevention-related messages. So whenever we talk about POCSO Act, and while we look at the number of cases that are still pending with regard to convictions that are very delayed, despite so many attempts made on Mahila courts and other things, people in terms of reporting is little bit at risk for them. Because one side, as you say, people withdraw the case. The other side is delayed justice. So does this help people to know there is a legal system already in place which is favoring or works for the best interest of any victim? So when delays are happening, how does people view in terms of coming and reporting further? My question is, while justice is being delayed or the delay in conviction rates are taking longer duration, though it is said that within a period of a year it has to be completed, but still delays happen, how is it that it helps in terms of reporting further for people who undergo this sort of abuse?
Actually, what happens is we make all these kind of rules. Conviction should happen in 15 days time. Some Hyderabad, whatever, Andhra brought in something, and that 1 year it should be over. What we forget is this particular law is situated within the pre-existing legal system. It's not because there is POCSO, there are additional number of judges appointed who are given this charge. Nothing of this sort happens. It is the existing structure, existing budgets, existing judicial appointments, everything is pre-decided. So you have a case here. Now, if they take POCSO case on priority, some other case will be delayed. And it's already maybe delayed 10 years. Now you are putting on additional delay. So the judges always have to balance, give time for all kinds of cases. And it's not always judges' fault that the cases prolong. It is also the lawyers who wish to prolong the case. And they feel it's their advantage to prolong the case, etc. Now, unless you have inquisitorial kind of justice where only the prosecution police investigate and the police prosecution argues and conviction comes. In the adversarial system, there's constantly that there are what we call it. One is a rule of law that all the procedures must be followed, and every opportunity must be given to the accused person to defend himself or herself. Now, in a situation like this, we cannot have quick justice. I mean, they tried fast track court, they could try something else, but even for a fast track court, you're taking out a judge from his daily routine and putting him in this position, which is overall causing judicial delay in any case. So it cannot be shortened. So the best thing is to explain to the person that, each stage of the litigation, in fact, it should be explained to all support persons, because they say we'll file case and in 1 month you'll get a decision. It will not happen. It's not going to happen. So it is the counselors, it is the support people who misguide the client and make them feel very frustrated that why it's not happening in my case, why it's not happening, it's delay is causing. Delay is part of the system. it is a normal thing. In family courts, a divorce case will take about 2-3 years. In a city civil court, it used to take 10-15 years. So that's an improvement from the existing system. Similarly, under POCSO, they say 1 year, but it's not 1 year, but sometimes 2 or 3 years. So this is a reality. This is the reality under which we live. This is the reality of a judicial system. So when we enter the legal system, we have to understand the system in which we are entering, and we cannot ask for miracles. Anybody, like Kasab's trial, it took so long for the Kasab's trial. It is this thing, Nirbhaya case, the accused people, they have to be finally hanged, but only after all legal reports has been added to. You cannot skip any point. You cannot skip any stage. You cannot skip any rule. And you say, I want to do like justice without following the rule of law. That is something we really need to understand. Our clients need to understand that yes, there is no other recourse. Are we looking at a justice system like what happened in Hyderabad, where there was a gang rape case and 4 or 5 accused were rounded up, and within 2 days they were taken to an open ground and they were shot dead. And many people applauded and said, this is a great system. But that is not great system. This is ultimate abuse of the system. We cannot have this kind of kangaroo courts and this kind of justice system. We believe in rule of law, and we have to go through all the processes. So when that happens, there is a clear human rights violation that takes place. Everybody has a right. Even the accused person has a right. So we have to understand that. And we have to explain it to the client. See, now we are in court. Court will take its own course. But we will go follow the each step. But in each step, we are going to protect you. We're not going to abandon you because it's taking time. We are not here for the money we are making into this case. And dragging it is not in our interest. We'll stand by you. We'll go ahead. We'll go by the case. And we'll see how the system is working. And if it's not working, then we have to bring change in the system itself, but not try to sidestep particular rules and norms. That is not justice, but changing the system. Oh, this is the delay. This is what we need. Or for instance, if we say so many judges and they're not able to handle, then we need a budget for additional appointment of judges. And that has to go to the legislature. And the legislature and the finance committee and finance department, all of them have to agree to this. Then only we'll get more judges. So it's a long system, and unless we understand the system in general, the justice system in general, we cannot do only rape cases or domestic violence cases. That is just not possible, because it may be domestic violence, it may be rape, it may be something else, but it goes into the same system which is existing, and we enter there. So it has its own consequences, but we have to stand firm, and we have to see that justice happens ultimately. We cannot lose hope in the middle. There's nothing else.
Thank you, ma'am. Thanks for clarifying. So what would you think would be the policy level changes that need to happen then in terms of this sort of mechanism that need to be in place? What would be the policy level change which we can think upon?
See, at this moment, I feel the system is very good. I mean, there are lots of changes that have come, but we don't follow them. And that's why we feel that system is wrong. The system is not wrong. The system, all the changes that we have asked for, we have got them. Except now we need more judges, not just for rape, more judges in general. But that is not a women's issue, that it becomes a justice issue. So, but what we do at Majlis is to follow the case very systematically. If there are constant delays, like in the domestic violence case, just see how many cases and how much delay, what is the gap between 2 days, etc. Write to Chief Justice and say, this is what is happening. There's so many of our cases are delayed unnecessarily. And then you can see a change immediately happening. And you start getting faster days. Courts are vacant for a long time, 6 months, 8 months. So we immediately say this court is vacant. This is, because of this, there is a delay in hearing domestic violence cases. Please do the appointment fast, and so that the cases can proceed. So you have to bring in changes in the system, which is possible by writing letters, by being vigilant to the system, and not individual cases, but generally overall, like a whole category of cases, like a domestic violence case or rape case. How everybody is suffering in this. and what the act says and where are the gaps. So point that out, write articles in the press, write to the Chief Justice, write to the registrar, and you can see the change. Immediately they will start responding. So it is a very, as I said, a rigorous procedure. And slowly we have to go around finding our ways. Don't expect magic results overnight. Slowly the change will come.
Nikita, you can go ahead with your question.
Thanks, Sanchita. Hi, I'm Nikita. I'm a student of Gender Studies at the University of Hyderabad. My question is to Flavia. How do you think has the justice system evolved to understand violence at the intersection of gender and technology? So, for example, every day we have thousands of new internet users. Most of them do not have the basic knowledge of how the internet works or how social media works. And this leaves young people, especially women and non-binary people, vulnerable and open to exploitation. So this is the context in which I'm asking this question. Thank you.
Well, actually, I am also very not tech savvy. I'm very tech challenged in that sense. And there are lots of for judges courses that are happening, lots of exposure to the crimes like cyber crimes that are taking place, etc. But as you say, we can sensitize the judiciary, sensitize the police, there is a special cyber cell, cyber police, etc. But the question you're asking is how to save individuals from getting exploited by this social media or internet issues is something, it's an evolving thing and it will take time for people. But I feel that civil society has a great role to play here to make people aware of it. And even the police and hold campaigns, they hold awareness groups, even in colleges, in institutions. There is a process of creating awareness, and each NGO, wherever community they work, also has a responsibility to create this awareness. But more than that, I can't respond because I don't deal with cybercrimes actually. But this is the, I guess this is the process and nothing more. Actually, personally, I'm very scared of all these new technologies and you don't know where you get exploited. And particularly for young people, non-binary people, the exposure is much high. The danger of getting caught into this is very much higher. And there are a lot of women who get duped into this. Financial frauds happen. Many other kinds of frauds happen. Marriage frauds happen. Even rape cases happen under this false premise and all that. So we need to be much more vigilant. That's all I can say for you at this point.
I have a quick question for Lakshmi ma'am. How effective is the Bell Bajao Ring the Bell campaign that was launched in 2008 in today's context?
So the bell bajao is so as bystanders, of course, when that ad was released, it was mostly to tell that, okay, somebody rings the bell and then they open and the violence just stops. But there are challenges in that as well, because sometimes when you do that, then sometimes the perpetrator can escalate violence as that. Of course, there is a possibility that, whatever the tension that was happening at the house can stop, but there are also possibilities that it can escalate as well. So as a bystander, we need to also understand that, okay, the consequences that are linked with when we are trying to help somebody, we need to be really aware of that, because some things that we do can have trigger some other it can escalate the violence in the house. So we'll have to always remember that, okay, so there are some clients who had called some bystanders who had called us and reached out to us asking that, can I just call the police and then send the police over to their place and I can be anonymous? But while that is possible, but we have to also understand that after, so the police comes, warns the husband and goes back, and then the woman continues staying with the perpetrator. So there are possibilities the violence can escalate there, because they will not know who has reported, and it can cause a lot of tension in the family.
I agree with that. I endorse this view that unless you have an entire backing system for this woman, if things aggravate after you have intervened without her consent, it's an extremely dangerous situation. So, and every woman has to take that call that, yes, I want intervention. I want to change the situation. I want some kind of help. Because unless she asked for it, you sort of intervene in her favor or in her support without having any backup mechanism. And tomorrow, who's responsible if the violence escalates, if she's thrown out of the house, or if she's killed? I mean, what do you do?
So
Because
what
the
we can,
violence
yeah,
can increase to at any point. So
right.
I would suggest I would never do such a thing. That's all I can say.
So what we can do is that, you know, we can try and speak to the, you know, the woman herself, and then let her know that there is help outside, because most often women don't know that help is available outside, and that most often, you know, issues that are happening in the family is considered to be like within the you know, close circles, and you don't take it outside. You just take it to your family, and that's about it. Like family meaning to say that your natal or marital home, and you know, all these are common in, like common, and it is okay. So that is a notion that, you know, people have in mind. So if you could take it to her, you know, if you know that okay, there is an organization that will be able to help, so then if you could take it to her and let her know that you don't have to go through this, and speak to her about it, and you can just pass on the number. I mean, whenever she's ready, she can make the call. So
Actually,
that we could do.
even better than that, if you can have awareness campaigns, it's much easier in a slum rather than in a middle class locality. But even in a middle class locality, suppose you have an awareness camp or something like that, and call everybody, and see that this woman also attends, or you can like send a special message. You know, like you come, please come and attend this. But she should not be singled out. Then only she'll come. If she's singled out, she will not come. So everybody's there. Her neighbors are there. Her other friends are there. She's there, and you create this awareness. A lot of time, after end of the session, the same day or within the next few days, she will reach out for help, because has become aware that this facility is there and somebody is there to help her. Or she may even come and or talk to you saying, it's not me, it's my neighbor, it's my friend, somebody else needs this help, so I've just come to inquire about it. But actually, by her talking only, you know that she is the concerned person. But it is better you don't disclose this to her, that you know about the situation. And she comes, she hears, and next time she will come and say, it is me, I need this kind of help. So give her time and create a situation where very generally you are raising questions and not very specifically in her context. Because we do not want to do anything that will aggravate a situation. Our whole aim is to like calm down the situation, make her strong, and make her aware that there is support mechanisms available for her if she so wishes. It's
Very
happened
true.
many times.
Yeah, so exactly. So in at PCVC, we have started like awareness sessions. So we're trying, we've done it through the radio, we are doing it in the social media platforms. So we're trying as much as possible to let them know, or let people know that there is, you know, help outside. So we also have gone to the like districts of Tamil Nadu, where we've got to the rural areas, and we conduct like an open talk, I mean like a session for women, talking about domestic violence and what are, like, you know, what are the consequences, or what are the types of violence. Because most often most of the women, they don't understand what's happening to them is actually violence, and it is not okay. So when we take it to them, sometimes during the session itself, they come and talk to him, like how ma'am has just explained. Sometimes they come and tell that okay, my friend is facing this, and then they ask how can I help her and all that. Or sometimes towards the end of the session, they come and be like, I'm facing this, so what am I supposed to do next? And most women have also reported that while going to the police, like how ma'am said, you know, we have to be very gender sensitive, because you know, when women are trying to come and, you know, talk to us about a problem, we have to be sensitive, and like also keep that in mind that she's gone through violence. So you know, the police also, she's gone to the police several times, but they've always told her that this is a family issue, why don't you just go back with your husband, this happens always, this happens to me. So you know, so the women like lose hope there. So and then like when they come reach out to us, then we, like, you know, when she has that support, like, you know, then we are able to go with her and, you know, help her get the justice that she wants.
Actually, if a survivor can talk about her own journey and how she went about it and was able to transform her situation, it has tremendous impact. that, oh, if she could do, then even I can do, even I can try to do. And if she explains exactly what she did, how she went about, how she didn't know what are the support systems, and how she came to know what were the challenges on the way, and how she was able to overcome those challenges, that provides an excellent role model for the other women to start exploring, thinking about a possibility.
Very true. So yeah, we do have a support group session and support group network where all the survivors of domestic violence come together and then share their, like they talk and they get to know each other, and then the same issue how they dealt with. So this also gives them a lot of confidence to, like, okay, I can also come out of this situation. So this gives them a lot of confidence. It boosts their confidence level.
Okay, thank you for the questions, everybody. Due to time constraints, we'll not be taking any more questions. Ma'am, are there any closing remarks for the way forward?
No, I think we have discussed different facets of the problem, and that was quite a huge ground about rape as well as domestic violence, support systems, challenges on the way, what should be done, what should not be done, etc. And beyond this, I think when we start working and we face challenges, then we know how to overcome them, or we seek avenues of overcoming them. And that's the way we become stronger. Nobody has all the answers when they start with, but the thing is to start doing, start providing this support, start getting attached to some organization that's already doing this kind of work. And I'm sure then through this we can create a broader network of support and see how we can help. And I'm glad this HRF has organized this, because I'm sure like if there is an organizational backing, a lot more things can happen. Yeah, these are my closing comments. Yeah.
Lakshmi ma'am, do you have any closing comments on the way forward?
Yeah, so I mean, like after the COVID, when once the COVID lockdown had started, we've all been hearing a lot of COVID, domestic violence increase, and it was the talk of the town, like when everybody were talking, the news channels were putting it out that domestic violence have increased. So now that everyone is aware that domestic violence is a serious issue, and I mean, although it has been existing for a very long time, but now that everybody is aware and they are, that. It has reached out to as many as people as possible. We have to continue like spreading the news and spreading like maybe to our own circles, and then let them know that, okay, there is help outside, that you can reach out for support. So being there and helping, a lot of people also get to know about the services for domestic violence will be like, will help them to take that step that they have to. So I mean, and then yeah, so it depends on when they want to do it and all that. But so like how I said, like, when the radio programs, a lot of people just try to just call. They called us and they said, I don't want to talk about it right now, but I just want to know if this number works. So, just to let them know that there is help, that will be like a one step way for, I mean, like going forward. So, as many as possible, like all of you were here, as much as possible, if you could share like with all your friends, family and all that, to anybody, that there is help, there is domestic violence, a serious crime, that this is not okay. If they feel like talking, they can talk to counselors or get help. I think that would be very helpful. And as I said, like essential services, this has to be also included, like, stakeholder, like all the stakeholders working for domestic violence also have to come under the essential service. I think hopefully the government takes this and considers the kind, like, the number of cases that we've received during the lockdown. I wish and I hope the government considers this as well to be an essential service for the future.
I think another issue that came up very strongly and very starkly is family abuse, child sexual abuse by fathers, because we were not talking about it like an organization like ours knew it existed. It's quite rampant, but the general society was not accepting it. So now when the cases increased, both of domestic violence and child sexual abuse by people at home, by parents and close relatives, I think that's another pointer that for us to act against, because with each day of our work, we get greater depths of knowledge and we're able to understand the issue in a much more complex term than we used to. And thus we're able to find remedies that are suited to the situation. So this pandemic has taught us many lessons, and I hope that we'll accept them and continue to find more complex answers to the complex situation.
Thank you so much to both our speakers for the enriching session. It was really insightful. And thank you, HRF, for giving us the opportunity to attend this session. I would now like to pass on the mic to HRF.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you, all of you. This is Saravanan once again. Good evening to all of you. First of all, on behalf of HRF, I'd like to thank all the speakers for sharing their graceful words with us and useful information. And I thank moderators Sanchita Jain and Sharada Jain from BOM colleges. And I would like to thank all the participants for attending the session. We hope this session would be very useful and informative to all of you. Before I close the session, I'd like to invite all of you for tomorrow's session also. We have 10 more days to go. The tomorrow session topic is digital empowerment, and the speaker is Jacqueline Pastricha, who was the founder director Feminism in India. So I welcome all of you for the tomorrow session also. Thank you everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.